It's really my pleasure to introduce the INEO CPS plating system to you. Many of you already know the system, but I would like to try to give you some summary of the feedback which we have got during the last 20 years with the system in use. So I will have a presentation, and then I have a short demo about the implants, and then you have some time for the questions. So I will now share my screen, and then we can start the presentation. Okay, I hope everybody can see now the first page of the presentation. This is part of the INEO Polku webinar series, as Marika informed. This is now our third webinar, and it will be followed by the presentations by doctors in craniomaxillofacial, orthopedics, and pediatric orthopedic surgeries then later on this year. But today we are talking about the INEO CPS bioabsorbable plating system for craniomaxillofacial surgery. And what is the system? It's a system used in pediatric and adult cranial and craniofacial surgery. Then I'm gonna introduce the clinical cases to you, as well as the feedback and what we have learned during the last 20 years. So the INEO CPS and CPS baby implants can be used in a cranial surgery, mid-phase trauma, orthognathic surgery in maxilla, as well as in mandibular trauma and orthognathic surgery in mandible. So this is the only resorbable plating system available which can be used in all those areas in the skull. The INEO CPS consists of 4 subsystems. 1.5 millimeter INEO CPS baby system, which is used in the pediatric cranial reconstruction surgeries, as well as pediatric mid-phase trauma cases. Then we have 1.5 millimeter INEO CPS plates and screws, which are indicated for adult surgery. They can be used also in pediatric patients, but the combination of the polymer is more suitable for the adult patients. The 1.5 millimeter system is used in cranial procedures, as well as the mid-phase fractures in adult patients. Then the 2.0 millimeter plates and screws, which are used in the mandibular trauma, as well as in Lefort 1 osteotomy in maxilla. And 2.5 millimeter plates and screws, which are used only in mandible and only area where you have a thick soft tissue coverage on the plate, meaning that here in the angle area or in the ramus, they are the most suitable plates. Introduction of the materials which are used in the implants. Some of you know it already, but there may be some new followers. The INEO CPS implants are made out of 4 different polymers: L-lactic acid, D-L-lactic acid, glycolic acid, and trimethylene carbonate. They all have a little bit different properties. L-lactic acid is strong but slowly degrading. D-L-lactic acid is more flexible, and then it has a moderate resorption time. Glycolic acid is very fast degrading polymer, and by adding that in the polymer mixture, we can make the polymer and implant fast degrading, which is more suitable for the pediatric patients, for example. And trimethylene carbonate is malleable rubbery component, which is used to make the implants ductile, not brittle. And by changing the ratio of these 4 different polymers, we can tailor the implant properties so that they have a unique handling strength and degradation characteristics for different applications. So it's important to understand that the different applications, it's good to have a different mechanical strength as well as a different degradation profile. For the pediatric patients, we want to have a material which is faster degrading, and for the adults, a little bit slower degrading polymer. And for the mandibular trauma and orthognathic surgery, we want to have a more strength in the implant. And by changing the ratio of the polymers in the implant, we are able to do that and tailor the properties of the implant. So where the Inion CPS implants are then used most commonly? In orthognathic surgery, the common indication are the Lefort 1 osteotomy, where the L plates, 2.0 millimeter L plates, are used together with the 2.0 by 7 millimeter screws. In mandibular osteotomy, sagittal split osteotomy, 3 or 4 bicortical screws are used to fix the PSSO, and in genioplasty, typically 2 bicortical screws are used. This is what we recommend to use from the Inion CPS systems. I know that in the metal implant system, sometimes also, or many times as well, depending on the system, the metal plates are used here in the sagittal split, and there are also special plates for the genioplasty. But our experience is that the bicortical screw fixation is more suitable when you use the bioabsorbable plating or screw system. Here is an example of orthognathic surgery before operation and after operation. Occlusion is changed dramatically, and it's close to optimal or even optimal here in the after surgery. Here you can see the plate fixation in Lefort 1 osteotomy. Here you can see the osteotomy line in mandible, and then 2 L plates fixed with 2.0 millimeter screws. And then 2 plates in the left side and 2 plates in the right side is typically used. Maxillofacial trauma is a very common indication as well for the Inion CPS. Of course, the orthognathic surgeries, they are well planned and you know when the operation is coming, but when you talk about the trauma, they will happen, and you need to have the implants and the staff trained and ready to use the implant in a short notice. The most common fractures and the implants, Inion CPS implants used are listed here. The orbital floor fracture is normally corrected with the orbital floor plate or then small mesh, 1.5 millimeter mesh. Zygomatic frontal bone suture fracture is common fracture as well the orbital rim fractures. There you can use 1.5 millimeter 6-hole plate or C plates. Zygomatic maxillary buttress fractures are typically fixed with 1.5 millimeter L plates. And then mandibular angle and body fractures are fixed with the 2.0 millimeter 6-hole plate, and symphysis and parasymphysis fractures, 2 plates size 2.0 millimeter and length 6-hole. You can easily cut the plate to 4-hole or 5-hole during the operation based on the requirements. Here you can see an example for the orbital floor fracture repair, where the piece of mesh was used. The mesh plate was cut in desired shape and molded in the water bath, and thereafter it's inserted under the eye, and then if needed, it can be fixed with one or two 1.5 millimeter plates as well. Here is the zygomatic buttress fracture fixation with the 1.5 millimeter L plate. Here is the end result. Here you can see the drilling, tapping of the hole, flushing of the hole, and then insertion of the screw. And then you have 5 or 6 screws per plate to fix it on the bone. Here is an example of symphysis fracture fixation. Here you can see the fracture line, and then the first plate is fixed, and then the second plate fixed with the screws. Normally in symphysis and parasymphysis fractures, 2 plates are used to give support to the rotational forces applied in that region. Pediatric cranial reconstruction is typically corrected with the INEO CPS Baby 20-hole plate or a 14 by 14 hole mesh plate. The mesh plate is easy to cut to desired shape and size during the operation. The screws are normally 1.5 by 4 millimeter, and then the other option is 1.5 by 6 millimeter screw. Typical indications are sagittal synostosis and metopic synostosis. And there are different surgical techniques treating the cranial reconstruction surgeries or abnormalities. This is the surgical technique developed by Professor Serlo. He is using the INEO CPS mesh plates, cutting them in pieces and fixing them under the skull. And then he is creating the optimal shape of the skull, and then is implanting it in the frontal bone, like you can see here. Most of the plates are inside the skull, only the end of the plate is outside of skull, where the modified piece is fixed to the skull. So that is a unique technique developed by Professor Serlo, and you will hear more about that in the next webinar in the beginning of October. Dr. Hormoz's technique is here. So he is cutting the cranial bone in U shape and fixing the plates, fixing the bones with the 20-hole plate, and with the good results. Dr. Murray is using 20-hole plates, INEO CPS Baby 20-hole plates in his cranial vault remodeling surgeries, and typically he is cutting the plate in shorter lengths or pieces so that he can fix the bone fragments or bone pieces together. Sometimes he is using the long plate, 20-hole plate, but many times he is cutting them in a shorter plates as required and defined during the operation. This is also an example case from Dr. Murray autologous cranioplasty, where the patient had the bone loss in the other side of the skull. Dr. Murray took a patient's own bone from the other side of the skull, split it in 2 cortical layers, and fix it with 20-hole plates back to the skull. This is also a case from Dr. Murray. The patient operated in some other hospital, came to doctor's hospital, and then it was treated with the metal implants around 3 years beforehand. However, the implants initially, of course, implanted on the bone were sunk inside the skull during the bone growth, and it was difficult to remove the implants from the skull and make the osteotomies because of the metal implants inside, and that's why it's recommended that the metal implants are always removed within 6 months after surgery in a pediatric cranial reconstruction operations. Some benefits and feedback what we have heard from our customers is that the plates are easy to shape, and that was our idea as well when we developed the plate design as well as the polymer composition. So we are using the polymer composition which consists of the trimethylene carbonate, which is the elastic component. And after water bath, treatment, it's easy to shape the plate by hand or with the pliers. And the idea is that once you heat the plate one time in the hot water, you can manipulate the plate also by using the pliers, like you are doing with the titanium plates. So you don't need to put the plate back in the hot water, but you can shape it with the pliers in a room temperature. And the plates are also easy to cut with the scissors to the desired size and shape. The screws are easy to pick from the screw package, and they are very securely fixed on the screwdriver tip. That is also very important for smooth and successful operation, because many times there are 20 up to 100 screws fixed in the skull, and the screw picking and screw insertion must be easy and fast, and that's what we have been really focused on when we designed the Inion CPS screws and plates and instruments. One big benefit with the Inion implants is the optimized degradation profile and the strength properties. As I mentioned, we are not only using one polymer for all the Inion implants, but we are changing the ratio of those 4 components: poly-L-lactic acid, D-L-lactic acid, glycolic acid, and trimethylene carbonate, so that we can optimize the degradation profile. For the pediatric patients, we have a faster degrading polymer. The strength retention is around 6 weeks, and the total degradation is less than 2 years. For the adults, we have a polymer composition which has around 9 weeks strength retention time, and the total degradation time is 2 to 4 years. So it's a little bit slower degrading polymer. And reason for that is that the metabolism of the younger patient is fast, and they can tolerate faster degradation rate compared to adult patients. And that optimization of the polymer is important, and then really makes the implant safe and reliable in a clinical use. There are some improvements and changes during the years. We added the orthognathic plates in the early years, 2.0 millimeter L plates and 6-hole plates, which are made out of stronger material compared to other 2.0 millimeter plates. And that's the idea to be used in the Lefort 1 osteotomy as well as the mandibular trauma. The orbital floor plate were added to the portfolio during this time. We also changed the drill bit diameter, reduced the diameter based on our feedback from the customers, and so that the drilling is easier, faster, and also the fixation of the screw is more reliable and secure. We added the self-tapping drill bits for 1.5 millimeter and 2.0 millimeter system, and those are especially used in the cranial reconstruction surgeries where you have to implant up to 100 screws, and then of course I understand that it's labor's work if you have to drill and tap manually, but now you can use the power driver and then make the drilling and tapping one step, which makes the operation smoother and faster. I have a couple slides here about the statistics and clinical use and evidence what we have for the INEOS CPS system. Based on our records, there has been now 370,000 implants sold in 55 countries, and our evaluation, annual evaluation done, we have also estimated the number of operations, and then we estimate that with the INEOS CPS implants there has been done 90,000 surgeries, and with the INEOS CPS Baby around 21,000 surgeries until now. The complication rate based on the estimated on the number of surgeries with the INEOS CPS is around 0.5%, and with the CPS Baby less than 0.1%. So this is based on the estimated number of surgeries. Of course, we understand that we don't we may not get all the complaints and failures. They are not informed to us, but anyway, the complication rate is very, very small with the INEOS CPS implants. Here we have some data for the indications. The most common indication for the INEOS CPS is mid-face fractures, followed by orthognathic surgery in mandible and maxilla, cranial surgery, and then mandibular fractures. The INEOS CPS Baby system implants are mainly used in the cranial reconstruction surgeries and also in pediatric facial fracture fixation. Based on his results, 4% out of those 5.9% failures or complications were inflammation, long-term inflammation, and then 1.9% implant breakages. We are many times talking about the complications and how much complications there are. 5.9% is, in my mind, and also Dr. Turvey's mind, totally acceptable and common failure rate with any implant. And then we have to understand that there are failures with the Inion implants, other resorbable implants, as well as titanium implants sometimes. However, I think we should also discuss about the success rate. When we think about the same data, we can say that 94.1% of the surgeries were very successful without any kind of complications. And we can say that those patients didn't have anything, they don't have any permanent implant for the rest of their life. And there is no risk for long-term complications, which might be issue with the permanent implant left in the body. There is another study just recently published by Dr. Rayleigh and Dr. Murray in Ireland. They are using the INEOS CPS 20-hole plate in cranial vault reconstruction surgeries, and they made the study with 182 patients. followed from 2008 to 2016, and they were following the wound complication rate, and that was around 11.1% in the patients. However, when they evaluated the cause of the wound complications, they found out that only 2.7% of the patients had implant remnants left when they did the follow-up operation or reoperation. So there was only 2.7% cases where there was still some implant remnants left, which may have caused the wound complication. So we could say, in other words, as well, that the success rate here was 97.3%. This is also interesting study made by Dr. Leonhard. He did a study with the INEO CPS 2.5 millimeter and 2.0 millimeter plate in mandibular fracture fixation, and he started with 2.5 millimeter plates and changed to 2.0 millimeter plate to avoid the exposure of the plate, which happened with 2.5 millimeter plate. And when he changed to 2.0, there was no plate exposures anymore, but the 2.0 millimeter plate worked as well as the 2.5 millimeter plate, as well as the titanium plate in a clinical point of view. Here are some statistics showing that also titanium plates need to be removed sometimes. Different studies show that between 5 to 40% of the titanium plates need to have some kind of reoperation. Some recommendations we have got from our customers. Here are a few of them. So sometimes we have been asked to add metal templates to make the plate shaping easier. But as I mentioned, the idea of the INEO CPS is that it's easy to shape after water bath treatment by hand, and you can use the plate itself as a template and shape it with pliers and really modify to fit on the bone on the room temperature. We have added depth marks in the drill tab so that you can easily see the length of the screw and required depth of the drilling. Sometimes we have been asked for the fast fixation screw or pin system. There are one system available by the competitor. What we have available now is the drill tabs and battery-driven driver, where you can make the drilling and tapping fast, and then also insert the screw easily with the screwdriver. And benefit here with the screw is that you always have a very controlled fixation. You feel when you insert the screw and when the screw is properly fixed on the bone. As the lessons learned from this 20 years experience and more than 100,000 operations in the cranial reconstruction and trauma and orthognathic surgery, we can summarize that it's important to always implant minimal amount of foreign material, whatever it is, in the living tissue, and also always ensure that there is a good soft tissue coverage on the implant. So that's why we recommend to use 1.5 millimeter implants in the midface and 2.0 millimeter implants in the mandible. Start with simple fractures with good bony contact. Use the elastics when needed. Typically, the time is between 2 days to 2 weeks. Drill and tap carefully. Then you can ensure that the threads in the bone are have a good quality and the screws are holding well in the bone. Use the 2-finger technique when you insert the screws, and do the training before starting the operations in a new hospital. Then you can talk with the doctors, you can talk with the operating theater staff, and discuss about the special features of the INEO implants and ensure that the operations with the patient start smoothly. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm sorry for disruption during the presentation. Now I have couple just quick demos here, which I want to show you. The first one is the idea of the two-finger technique with the screws. Here I have the screw mounted on the screwdriver, and here I have the plywood. So when you use the two-finger technique, it's very easy to feel when you have more resistance here when the screw is fully inserted in the bone. Then you just turn 1/4 and remove the driver. That is only needed. So please do not over tighten the screw. When you follow this, the screw fixation is easy and fast. Another demo I want to show you is the shaping of the plate. I have here now the L plate, which is easy to shape with the hand after a water bath treatment. And now it's getting stiffer. However, what you can do is you can take the pliers, and you don't need to put the plate back into hot water, but you can make the final shape and the angles just by using the pliers. And then if you need to make a correction here in the other end, just take the pliers and turn the plate. So that is what I meant, that the plate can be used as a template, and then metal templates may not be needed. Thank you.